now rise to the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. First on our agenda is a recommendation of a hire.
Good evening. I am enthusiastically recommending for your approval the hire of Miss Maddie Cole for a teaching position. Her semester 2, 2021-22 teaching assignment will be an English language arts teacher at the middle school with one section of Michigan virtual at the high school. After reviewing the resumes of the applicants and interviewing candidates, a team of middle school educators selected Ms. Cole as the candidate to recommend to the school board. As you will note in Ms. Cole's resume, she has served as a building substitute at Williamston Middle School since August of 2020. Professionally, Ms. Cole has a wide range of experiences while substitute teaching at the middle school. She had the exceptional ability to adapt to new situations, especially last year. So she supported teachers and colleagues along the way. Outside of the classroom, Ms. Cole also serves as the head varsity coach for the boys and girls swim and dive team. And she is the yearbook advisor at the middle school. Numerous references describe Ms. Cole as extremely focused, extremely organized, flexible, and she's definitely a team player.
Do we have any questions? All right. I entertain a motion.
I make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education hire Madeline Cole as teacher effective January 31st, 2022 for the master contract.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We have a couple more things, and then if you hang tight, we'll get up and congratulate you. So if you just hold tight for 1 minute. The next part of our meeting is citizen comments. If you would like to address the board, you may come to the podium. You have 3 minutes. You need to state your name and address. And the first part of citizen comments is anything that has to do with the agenda. So if anybody would like to make a comment about the agenda, you may step forward. At the end of the meeting, we open it up to anything. All right. Next, celebration. I'm going to turn this over to Adam.
All right, so there's been a lot going on, a lot of good news to report, and we'll start with some stories that are up on the website. So, so actually just the one with the district buzz update page. There we go. All right, so I'll go, let me see, make it easier, I'll go in reverse order here. So the first one up there, it's kind of a fun one, but the boys basketball team, again, ranked #1 in the state. It's the second time, I think, in a couple of years, 2 years. And Coach Lewis just recently earned his 100th victory. So a story on that posted to the site. You can click through there for more information. The next one down is our students competed in the District Choir Festival, high school students, and earned an excellent rating and qualified for the state competition inspired later on this year, both as an ensemble and then we had some solo performers as well. So very nice job by Lindsay Snyder with her direction of our choir program as always. Our next story involves our science department at the high school, which qualified for a Michigan Science Teachers Association grant, which will provide some additional instructional resources to the science department at the school. It was a collaborative application But Teresa Billy, one of our teachers in the science department, was the lead writer. And as indicated in the story, there were actually 3 teachers selected in the entire state for that award, and she was one of those 3. So really appreciate the extra effort on her part to seek out those additional funds and earn them and provide those extra resources to our students. Next is a recognition that Steve Kirsten, who's a math and robotics teacher at the high school, earned the Veterans of Foreign Wars has a National Teacher of the Year program, and it kind of works like a tournament where you're nominated and then you work through various levels with your application reviewed by a panel of judges, and it starts at the local post level and then works out from there. And so Steve was nominated at the local post level out of Fowlerville, won that competition, then won the next one, which I think was districts, and has moved on to become the state finalist for Teacher of the Year through the VFW. So Nancy has a newspaper article up here we can kind of pass around, published out of Livingston County. It'll give you some more information on what that was all about and the recognition that Mr. Kirsten earned. So very proud of him for that accomplishment. A couple additional things that aren't on the website, but I'll just point out, we recently had students enter into the Scholastic Art Competition, and I know Mrs. Kuhu always comes towards the end of the year and kind of presents a roll-up of the high school art program, so I'm sure she'll talk more about that if she does that again this year. But several students did extremely well, and we featured one of the award-winning students in the Buzz update that was published on Friday. Mentioned Mrs. Campbell already, but she also led our high school musical, which was The Bold, the Young, and the Murdered, which was performed earlier, I guess not last month, and earlier in January, and had a number of very successful performances. And so congratulations again to her and the students who participated in that. And then lastly, Jeff, you can go back to the YouTube page. This is again just kind of a fun one, but wanted to show just kind of an example. One of the things that administrators look at when they go in the classrooms is this idea of 100% engagement, right? It's this idea that every student should be doing everything, and so it's always one of the first things that draws our attention. And so I thought this was kind of a good example to show the board. We won't watch the whole thing, but just to give a
Wake up, trader. It's time to bring your portfolio to life at Tastyworks. Don't you want to up your trading game? What about a broker that lets you trade stocks, options, futures, and crypto on one platform? Meet your new platform when you open and fund a new Tastyworks account.
worried well it's going to go. Yeah, this one is an appropriate version. Again, just a cool example of one of the things that would draw our attention to see that every student's engaged, every student's participating, and down the road we might see some of those kids in the high school drum line. So, but just a nice example of what 100% student engagement looks like in an elementary classroom. And then last but certainly not least, we have a really awesome accomplishment tonight. And that was, we have our first teacher in our district have earned national board certification, and that is was earned by Mrs. Nwea, who teaches social studies at our our high school. A little bit of background on this. So, National Board Certification is something that I've always been very personally interested in. And I always knew it was a big deal, even when I was teaching in Williamston. It was something that, I remember even talking with some colleagues about, like, hey, how awesome would that be for one of us to, like, someday be a nationally board certified teacher. And then when I had the opportunity to run an international school and then through middle states go and accreditate schools in different parts of the world, I just learned how, it just magnified the significance of national board certification, because when you look even internationally at the regard that holding that certification had at an international level, it just, again, was just something that was extremely important and extremely sought after, even when you were looking at administrators and teachers in different schools throughout the world. So when I came back to Williamston, it was something that I really wanted to see if we can encourage our teachers to try to seek out, understanding how important it is, and again, like I said, how significant that certification is held in regards in the education world. So we have the good fortune, through the support of our Teachers Association and the board, to provide some support in terms of resources so that teachers could pursue that journey if they so chose to do so. So we had our first cohort a few years ago that began that journey. We have a couple of teachers, at least one I know of, that's getting close. But Anne was the first person to actually get all the way through the process. And she'll talk a little bit about it this evening, but this is not a gimmick. This is extremely intensive. It takes many years to get through, and it's one of those things that a lot of folks will start and not finish because of the demands for it. So I don't know when we started this, which was a number of years ago. I think at that time there was like maybe 375-ish teachers in the state of Michigan that had earned it. I don't know the exact number, but it's not many. In fact, when you go to the National Board site, you can actually look up the teachers across the country that actually hold it. I mean, so it's very rare. And so now if you go there and you look up Williamston Community Schools, you'll see Ann Nwea's name there, which is just a great accolade for our district and our high school. So I'll stop talking, and I want to bring Ann up to give some background on her journey towards earning this recognition. But let's kind of start with just a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody. I have been thinking about this process for quite a few years. I think it was before I had 3 children, and then that got put on the back burner. And then in 2018, I was at a summer conference, and I heard about National Board Certification. I'm like, I thought about that. I want to try that, but I needed support. I was talking to a professor from Houston, and I'm like, where do I find a support? How do I look this up on a website? Where do I go? And then that fall, Dr. Spina came back and said, hey, we want to build a cohort of teachers. It was like, it was magical. I'm like, yes, I want to do this. So the support came from the district, and so thank you so much for getting that going and allowing that to happen. Once that informational meeting happened, the cohort was created with Hazlitt Schools and the 3 of us here from Williamston, and we met once a month on a Saturday morning from 8 to noon and talked about what goals we wanted to set for ourselves, what type of data we had to start gathering, how we had to evaluate that data, what class we wanted to use as our focus, how we had to get the permission slips sent out to the parents and to the students. And that took a long time. And so it took, at least 6 months each year. It took me 3 years to finish the process. There are 4 different components, and I need to read my notes so I don't forget. Each component focuses on the teacher and all aspects of the job, from communication with parents and students, to lesson planning, to assessment writing and grading, to recording interaction with students and demonstrating how I help students achieve the goals of the class. There's also a 4-hour exam that tested my knowledge on world and U.S. history and government. I had to demonstrate differentiated instruction, how I met the goals of all different learning levels within my classroom. I had to submit 2 different videos of 10 to 15 minutes of me teaching in front of the class, which Deb LaFleur helped me record a couple years ago, and then I had to re-record last year.
And that, just looking back to that video is historical because I'm trying to negotiate 10 kids who are online, 10 kids who are in, well, about 15 kids who are in the classroom, keep them all engaged, as Dr. Spina says, we like to see student engagement. And then I had to write a 3 to 5 page paper on every single video that I did to say what point am I, interacting with the students? How do I interact with the students? How do I redirect the students? The video didn't have to be perfect. In fact, they don't want necessarily perfection. They just want to see how you as a teacher, not administrator, respond to the students, and how do you, keep them invested in the classroom, and how do you keep them learning, and how do you know that what you did is, successful, or what are you going to do differently if it didn't work out well this time? So it taught me a lot about reflection. It taught a lot about what I do as an educator. It opened my eyes to just understanding that there's a lot of things that we do as educators that we just kind of take for granted, whether it's figuring out how to write that assessment, how did the students do on that assessment, how can we help them do better for the next time, how do we keep them fully engaged in the classroom in 55 minutes or online, how do we meet their needs with where they're at mentally, emotionally, physically, what have you. So it's a huge balancing act that they're looking for in the National Board Certification. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. I just have more tools in my toolbox. And I'm super excited about what opportunities might be afforded to me as a nationally board certified educator. And so where that process might take me. So I'd like to thank Dr. Spina, thank the board, thank my awesome colleagues who started the process with me and hopefully will finish it soon. Thank my family who put up with me not helping with the yard work because I had to finish up writing up my evaluations and my understanding of what I was doing. It was a beautiful day when I walked to take my assessment. I haven't taken a test myself in, let's just say a lot of years. And I put myself in the shoes of my students who I send off to AP tests every year. And I'm like, you guys got this, 4 hours, you're gonna be fine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really intimidating. So, so it put me right back there with them. So thank you. And yeah, I'm really excited for what comes next. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we do have a little celebration for you, but first we have to move into a closed session. So if I can have a motion to go into closed session. For people who are watching us on YouTube or live, we are going to, once we make the motion to go into closed session, we're cutting the mics. So the mics will be off, and then when we come back, we'll turn them back on. So can I have a motion to go into closed session, please?
Motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Dave, you were second. Amanda, can you take us through the roll call, please?
A motion to go into closed session. Amanda, yes. Chris?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
And Sarah?
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. I have to come back to you.
Mike's around. Can I please have a motion to come out of closed session?
Motion to come out of closed session.
Second?
Amanda, will you take us through the top, please?
Okay, motion to come out of closed session. Amanda, yes. Chris?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
And Sarah.
Yes.
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay. Next on our agenda, education updates. Come on.
Good evening. I know this is kind of part 2 of one that I had done before. So this is, Jeff, this is the benchmark one.
Okay, I got to do something first.
Okay, I won't touch it because I'll ruin it.
Thanks, James.
So we'll start with our Ames Web Plus. There we go. So for Ames Web Plus, it's an assessment, but it's also a data management and a reporting system that provides national and local performance and growth norms for the screening and progress of math and reading skills. We just use it for K1, but it does go past K1. Detailed reports for students, classrooms, and districts can be generated immediately once testing is completed. In kindergarten, Ames Web Plus literacy assessment, it focuses on letter recognition, letter sounds, and blending. In first grade, the skills shift to oral reading fluency. Ames Web Plus math assessment in kindergarten focuses on emerging numeracy skills such as number recognition and quantity conceptualization. For first grade students, they're assessed on number pair comparisons and math facts. So as the chart shows, different skills are assessed depending on when the assessment is given and the grade that it's targeting. Kindergarten and first grade students have both our literacy coach and our MTSS paras administrating the assessment, and that's through paper and pencil, so that's different than NWEA, which is computer-based. This provides the ability to keep our young ones focused and prompted when needed. So for our fall, winter kindergarten tiers, and we were lucky, we still are even having a few students that need to be assessed due to COVID. We've kind of been backlogged this year. But students need to know 34 more words in Tier 1 between fall and winter. So both of those charts are there. Tier 1 is where you want to see our students be, and Tier 1 students did increase in kindergarten reading by 6 percentage points in the winter. Students need to know 37 more words for Tier 2, which is a big gap for them. Tier 2 students it decreased by 2 percentage points, which is what we want to do. We want to decrease Tier 2, decrease Tier 3, and then add to our Tier 1. Students needed to know 37 more words in Tier 3 between fall and winter. So Tier 3 students decreased by 4 percentage points. So as compared to fall, when you look at the triangles, Tier 3 needs declined this winter, even with that large jump in cut scores between fall and winter, which is really nice. So for first grade, students need to know 20 more words in Tier 1 than they did in the fall for this winter. Tier 1 students increased by 14 percentage points this winter. Students needed to know 17 more words in Tier 2 between fall and winter, and Tier 2 students decreased by 3 percentage points. Students needed to know 16 more words in Tier 3 this winter, and Tier 3 decreased by 17 percentage points in winter in first grade. So as you can see, even by the colors, as shown on the triangles, students showed great growth in winter with more students in Tier 1 and way less students in Tier 3. Sarah?
Go
You want me
ahead.
to wait?
No,
You
go ahead.
can ask me. I'll go back.
So, yes, we're noticing a decrease in the high risk, which is the Tier 3, and also in the moderate risk, which is Tier 2. What supports are given to those students?
To the Tier 3 and Tier
Yes.
2.
Yes.
Those are our WIN groups.
Yep.
And so it's very targeted. We do benchmarking every other week. We have WIN paras in there. Hopefully we'll start increasing it, but it's 20 minutes in each of the class, and it's very succinct interventions that we use, and hopefully we're going to be adding more too as the years continue with some grant money that we're getting.
I mean, it seems to be, just based on this data alone, seems to be working, what intervention we are using.
Right, yep, and it is different depending on the students,
Of course,
depending on
very
the grades,
individualized.
yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Orton-Gillingham has really always been, but we're really targeting Orton-Gillingham type of interventions. And we're going to continue that, maybe even through training of our teachers. We're looking at an Orton-Gillingham grant specific that Orton-Gillingham does, and I'm hoping for training for teachers. So yeah, it is really nice to see that.
So I'll point out too, right, this is very connected to your first board goal, right? And so the district board invests heavily in MTSS, multi-tier systems of support, right? And so the structure is a very simplified version. You have your data walls, which buildings conduct, where they're looking at data by student, by cohort, grade level. Then you have data days where they're going in and looking and analyzing those data, and then prescribing interventions to students who need them, right? They're customized interventions to support students based on what they need, in this case focused on literacy. And then of course you have your district data days where we're looking at a broader umbrella. But this is, a very simplified overview of what that structure looks like and how you're able to go in and actually target specific interventions or specific students to close those gaps that we see. And again, historically, especially pre-COVID, right, this has been like our calling card, right? This is what we do, arguably better than anybody else. Obviously, COVID has put some stress on those structures, but this is something that our district is known for historically for achieving at high levels.
Yeah, thanks for asking though. It's
So
really
can you
makes
tell us fall, these tests are given in September?
Right
and
away.
Winter would be?
Right now, we're just finishing. We should have been done, but unfortunately, because of COVID, we're still
Yeah.
kind of, you'll hear actually we're missing a couple of students, especially in math. I identified that, but usually it's mid-January because we get back from winter break. We have a couple of weeks, and then we start in again with our benchmark assessments. So, and it's 3 times a year that we do it, and bring that to the data wall, as Adam just talked about, to really make big changes. But every other week, we're looking at our students in Tier 3 and Tier 2 so that we continually see what needs to be done. And our school psych, in fact, came to me today we actually now have Tier 4, and we're looking at kiddos that have had intensive Tier 4 instruction. And our special ed staff is doing that, almost like in a MTSS model. And we're making some big decisions based on how long they've been there. But, remember, these are the kids that have had no schooling, basically. So we're really behind the 8 ball, and we want to give them time to adapt to learning. So, but yeah, thanks for the question. So for math for fall and winter, in this I broke it down between both kindergarten and first grade, but on the same slide. In kindergarten, there were 36 students that were added to Tier 1 in winter from our fall testing. 46 students moved out of Tier 2, and there were 9 students who dropped from Tier 3 and went into Tier 2. So 19 students have not been tested as of Friday. I updated this. In first grade, 38 students moved into Tier 1 from our fall testing. 20 students moved out of Tier 2, and there are now 26 students less in Tier 3 than there were in the fall. 8 students were not tested in first grade in math. So now we're going to move into NWEA, which is what I had presented last time, an overview. So I'm just going to give a quick update of what MAPS was, and that's just the measure of academic progress, and that's where you get the acronym MAP. And it's an adaptive achievement test that allows educators and parents to look at student performance and growth. The test creates a personalized assessment experience, so it self-adapts to student responses, and each student receives a unique set of questions based on their own responses. So it's very individualized. And the RIT score, it stands for Rosh Unit, and it's a measurement scale developed specifically by MAP to simplify the interpretation of test scores. And it's an equal interval scale. It's like feet and inches on a ruler. So the scores can be added together to calculate accurate class or school averages. And RIT scores range from 100 to 300. Students typically start at 170 to the 185 range. And in second grade, they start to progress 225 to 260 level by high school. So it's a slow progression. It's like inches, if you think about it that way, how tall somebody is, or short in my case. So for NWEA reading data, I tried to highlight from fall to winter for you. The highlight is the grade RIT. The unhighlighted is actually the students, the number of students to the overall students, which gave us the percentage of students in that grade that were at or above norm. So the RIT grade level reading score for 2nd through 8th grade students, they showed an increase from fall to winter in all grades. 6th grade showed a small increase, where 2nd grade had the largest increase with almost a 9 RIT increase, which is really great. From fall to winter, the percentage of students at or above the mean RIT showed growth at most grade levels. 2nd grade showed the largest jump in percentage. So if you need to ask me anything specific, please feel free, because I know this, I look at this all the time. And in math, the RIT grade level math scores for 2nd through 8th grade students showed an increase from fall to winter in all grades. 2nd grade, again, had a 9-point RIT increase from fall to winter. From fall to winter, the percentage overall of students at or above the mean RIT showed a varied range. Some grades had a little lower RIT, some had the same, and some showed a higher percentage of mean RIT this winter. And that is it.
For 3rd grade, with the math data for NWA, what's the asterisk Under winter students at or above?
Yep. Can you see how many students were tested at 69? But yet there was 123 tested. Third grade, I got an email, they have still not even finished one of the classes. So I just wanted to denote that. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, they've had a slower, we can set our targets. There's supposed to be so many days between our fall, winter, and spring, but because of COVID, we've manipulated it a little bit. So we're still actually in the testing for some of this. Yeah.
Oh, we had some days where there were like 6 kids in class.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. And teachers missing, and they're not going to have a sub.
Yeah, and
You-
snow days that we have last week.
Correct, correct. Any other questions or comments?
Dr. Cook, one question on the 8th graders, because I'm noticing that the
Oh,
the
I don't
8th graders
have it
seem
up
to
there.
have the smallest change in both math and reading. And is that pretty accurate in regards to what we're seeing larger?
I'm sorry.
I put that presentation.
Oh, you put on the other, okay, sorry. Could you repeat that, Chris?
Oh, sorry. On the 8th graders, I just noticed that it seems like on the 8th grade for both math and reading, it's the smallest change in regards to what we're seeing across the rest of the grade ranges. My question, I guess, is that pretty much on par with what we're seeing on a statewide level? Or is that an anomaly for our district?
I haven't looked at the state data, but if you're asking me, it is an anomaly right now for us. Usually our middle school, our jumps are pretty great. And so 8th grade, we're meeting in 2 weeks. We're going to look at that, the coaches, and kind of really dig down deep into the data. So I don't really have an answer, and I haven't looked at the state NWEA. I don't have access to that.
Okay.
I only do for MSTEP. But I'm sure I could sort of feather it out, but I don't have their system to be able to go in.
Okay. I was just kind of interested because I
Yeah.
know because there was just so little change in both of those,
Right.
what we were seeing and what were the challenges with that grade range that we're not seeing the difference.
Right, and usually they do really well. So I honestly don't have an answer at this time, but hopefully I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just had a quick question.
Sure, Julie.
How long have we been using the NWEA and the AIM in
Ames Web
total as
Plus.
far as using this for our benchmarks?
So this is really our first full year of, unfortunately, fall, winter, and spring data, because we started 2 years ago and COVID hit.
Right,
So we
okay.
had fall and winter, didn't have spring. Then last year, it was really hit and miss with kids coming in and out. And this is going to be our first full year.
Okay.
Ames Web, we've had a year before. We started a year before COVID, so 18, 19 was our
Okay.
first year with Ames Web Plus. We used to do FastBridge.
Okay. Well, I think it will be really important, what Chris was kind of talking, to get like a state data when we're done with this year, so we can kind of see how we look, being that we really don't have any data to see pre-COVID to now on our benchmarks because of the new system. So it'll be kind of nice to see where we're at statewide at the end of the year, so we kind of have
A gauge.
a gauge.
Normally,
We're all
we-
kind of working in our own little sea here,
Right.
so.
And normally, I don't have access to that, but as I was just
Yeah.
thinking about Chris's comment, now every district, just as I'm doing, has to share their data. And so it's on their website, so I will go in and I will do that. That'll be my next project.
Awesome.
And get an idea for you and
Awesome.
report
We've
back.
historically done that for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm just competitive. But then secondly.
Really, you don't think?
But secondly, if you're just looking at your own growth, student growth in a vacuum, right, there's no comparative context. And so we've used, many different measurement tools over the years. I've lost track. FastBridge was the one before this.
Right.
And that's a whole other discussion point
Mhm.
about, the validity of those. I think I'm very confident in WEA.
Yes.
But some of the systems we had in the past had some things to be desired. But yes, traditionally, that's what we want to do. I think mostly for those two reasons. It gives us, and I think we've done presentations for the board in the past where we've shown like our rates of growth compared to, and we've rated us against other comparable districts. So, I'm really looking forward to be able to back to that, hopefully in the not too distant future, because that does give us a lot of information. And it's also just boded well for the district when the state or other entities can look at that, right, and kind of give us a snapshot of what we're doing. We know, again, pre-COVID, we've gotten a lot of awards for our rate of student growth over the years. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't wait to actually getting back to doing like that kind of stuff. But it's a process right now, given the times that we're in.
Right, but I can do that because you're right, they are asking us to post, which we did. So I will look.
Yeah,
I'll get
thank
back
you
to
very
you. You're
much.
welcome.
Well, and the other thing that I just noticed too is that not only on 8th grade, but in reading, you've got a decrease in students in 4th grade, as well as math was 6th grade, there was a decrease from fall to winter too. So, I mean, there's something that happened that caused that, because in all the other areas except for 8th grade, they went up. So,
Yes, yeah, and so I can look into that too. And I meet with the coaches once a month, so they are just finishing this, and that's our next meeting. That's
Great.
something we're going to dive into. So whether it's myself or Adam, or if you have a question, I can even email too, because I'm interested. Obviously, I research this all the time. So thank you. If you have other questions, let me know.
Thank
I'd be more than
you.
happy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Adam, you're up for superintendent's report.
Yeah, just a quick preview of upcoming meetings in March. We will be we're projecting to bring a presentation to the board on technology purchases and a potential one-to-one initiative at the secondary level. We're still kind of working on putting that together, but our hope is to get that out in front of you in March. And then we're also in the process of working with Padlet to review our agreements for technology and food service. And so I hope to have those hashed out in front of you either the first or second meeting next month.
All right. Next, board committee reports. The first one, our MASD workshop. I want to thank all of you for coming, doing your due diligence. It was a great conversation. We got some stuff out of it. I hope if anybody has anything to add, or if there's anything you want to see, let me know. I did reach out to get to her to get. She talked about having new board member orientations, and she had some ideas. So kind of meeting with her on that. And then looking at, talking with Adam and the policy committee about policy around certain classes to be on committees. So,
Making it word policy for those things.
correct?
Making it word policy.
Correct. So, and I know Dave, you couldn't be there, so again, I forgot to bring that folder, but we can meet and go over.
Okay.
And I can get that to you.
Thank you.
If there's anything else or any other takeaways any of you guys have, let me know. But thank you for your due diligence. It was a great conversation. Next, Ingham School Officer, ISOA, Jeff.
So in preparation for snow days and bad weather, we made the decision to meet Zoom. So we still met Zoom even though there's no school and everything else. And we had Jennifer Smith, kind of give a up-to-date what's going on with MASB and what's going on in Lansing and what have you. Then we had our election for officers, and I'm vice president again. That's a whole other story. And I had Sarah do our presentation for what's going on in our district on the spot, dealing with a child who was perfect. You did a great job. So,
I had 4 children.
oh yeah, she had 4 children. I forgot. Yeah, so I really put her on the spot, and it worked out actually really well. So. That was a good thing. And the next meeting will be in March. There is no meeting in April because of spring break, and then the last meeting of the school year, academic school year will be in May. And those are always the first Wednesday of the month.
Any questions for Jeff? All right, moving right along. Next, high school social studies curriculum.
So I see you have the mini cues on most of your desks, the big binders. So tonight's presentation is on mini cues. Do you want to do the slide version of that?
Yeah, the
Okay.
slide there, I just want to make sure that I got everything.
Yeah, I know before Dr. Cook starts too, you're not gonna have time to look through all that stuff tonight. So we'll have that at the central office, if you can come in at your convenience, if you'd like to look through the binders in more detail.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, and that's going to be mentioned too in here. So for tonight, the agenda is what are mini cues, the rationale, depth of knowledge, which you have a handout on your desks, course mini cues, materials and cost to purchase, recommendation, and then of course any questions or discussion that you'd like. So what are mini cues? Mini cues are a set of documents that are based on an important question in history, which students read, they analyze and interpret to develop an argumentative essay. All questions encourage interpretation, have more than one correct answer, and they're arguable. The documents contain quotes, texts, photography, and charts that support students to consider multiple perspectives, reconcile different positions, evaluate the strength of competing arguments, and promote deeper levels of thinking through the development of critical skills. There are 10 engaging documents with questions in each of the units. Please feel free to review the binders here tonight, as well as, like Adam said, at central office over the next few weeks for a more in-depth look. So our rationale is mini cues. They assist in teaching reading and writing in social studies. As students progress up the ladder, they encourage progressively more complex tasks and challenges which support deeper learning. Mini cues create interest, promotes discussion, and builds student confidence as they work in pairs or small groups, and they assist in whole class instruction. So you have our wheel of depth of knowledge. If you don't, I have extras up here. But I wanted you to be able to look and see what that entails, because when using mini cues, students explain nuances of an issue by analyzing multiple variables and develop an argument. They are taught to use both similarities and differences. It's about change, multiple causes, or cause and effect in their argument papers. Relevant and insightful connections within and across periods of time are all reflected in their writing. Confirming the validity of an argument by looking at multiple perspectives across themes is shown in their final products. And students are to cite evidence from the reading, draw conclusions, and justify why their opinion is correct. So the course mini cues, please feel free to view all of these. We're looking at Civics, Economics, American History, and World History Volumes 2 and 3. And the binders are all here tonight. The company gave this to us gratis for you to look at. And if you'd like the additional time, again, they will be in Betsy's office at central office over the next few weeks. So the materials needed are resource binders like you have tonight that I'd be buying for the classrooms in those subjects: Civics, Economics, American History, we needed Volume 3, and World History, Volume 2 and 3. So there are 5 binders that we need to purchase. They're $375 for a binder, and the total cost for all 5 would be $1,875. To provide teachers with the engaging and higher level thinking skill curriculum, I do recommend to the board that mini cues in these areas be approved for purchase. And if you have any questions or comments, I would love to answer.
2 questions. Are there other districts that are also utilizing mini cues around our own?
Good question. I couldn't tell you for certain if they are or not. We ourselves are. You approved a class for our advanced social studies, and mini cues are part of that 8th grade history class. So we ourselves are using them.
The second question that I have really is talking about the transition between middle school and high school. And if students are not in this the advanced course, and they've never been challenged in this way before, but then they jump into 9th grade, into history, and they're being challenged in this way. What is the plan in, let's say, 8th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 6th through 8th grade, to prepare a student to be able to think at that higher level so that when they do hit the high school, it's not a wake-up call?
So actually, these themselves, the teachers use these to scaffold that kind of higher level thinking. So even if the student had never had it in, let's say, 6th or 7th grade, and even in 8th grade, like you're saying in a traditional social studies class, when they receive these, that this is part now of how a teacher would scaffold the writing. It's the writing piece that they're trying to use. So I can tell you in certain that we use scaffolding like this in our language arts classes, in my perspectives, when you approved that a few years ago. That's all pieces that we look at, our higher level attributes to be able to be thinkers and to write critically and to be able to compare and contrast. So they've had bits and pieces of that all the way through. Now it's just being applied in the social studies realm. And obviously it's more scaffolded because there's curriculum that now is being handed to them and being thoughtfully utilized. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah, I think the key here is, right, if you look at the depth of knowledge, kids aren't going to just figure out like levels 3 and 4 on their own. It has to be taught, right?
Scaffolded.
Explicitly taught. So teachers need to work a progression to get kids to the point where they can do those things. Some students are going to accelerate a little quicker, so we have a class that's allowed for that, but all students need to move up through those levels. And again, if you look at, I don't know about you, with the way I learned social studies, was like read chapter 9 and then answer the 4 questions at the back of the book, right? Or the end of the chapter. Well, that's all.
The back of the book sounded better.
Well, I mean, I remember that. Like you read chapter 6 and there were 4 questions and you go back and what you just read and just write the answer. Well, that's level 1, right? I mean, that's recall. And quite frankly, kids don't need teachers for that, right? You can ask Siri to tell you any of that information and you'll get it. I mean, it's the truth.
You were different. I was thinking, I don't know, I memorized the Paul Revere poem, that you had to stand up in front of class and memorize.
But I don't need that. I mean, kids don't need that stuff anymore. What you need to be able to do to actually make something useful out of this is you need to move into these higher levels of thinking, and that needs to actually be taught explicitly, as Dr. Cook was saying,
Scaffolded.
Get kids to the point where they're able to do that on their own. And that's the whole point of this, and especially if you look at social studies in particular, and you look at the SAT, right? The SAT is, predominantly a social studies type of test, but what they're really looking at is the kid's ability to read and write, right? So that they can be successful when they move on to the college level. Well, where is that taught? It's taught here, right? Through the context of looking at these different issues that come up in our social studies courses. So it's about reading and writing,
And thinking.
and then moving into those level 3 and 4 skills, all of which need to be exclusively taught by the teacher so that students are able to do those things.
Right. And I do try to always give you more information than what you see, but I think in one of the slides that's in your board book, they scaffold it. It's the actual product. So for different levels of learners, which is really nice. So for teachers, they can say, Johnny really needed a little bit more, and they have that within that curriculum right there. And then they might move them up. So the program itself is leveled, which is really nice. Because you're right, some kids are going to need more support than others to be able to work through that process.
Well, I was looking through the economic, and it was, the way that they put it, and, they do make you work through it and write your way through it, which is what I'm happy to see. I feel like we don't write enough, and it's kind of hard to determine if you're in 3 or 2 unless you're writing, so that you can interpret whether or not they're applying skill and strategic thinking, so.
Yes, that's
I do
called,
like-
sorry, I love this stuff, it's actually good.
You wouldn't know that.
Unfortunately, I don't get to talk about much anymore, but, so that's called like pen in hand, right? So, like, kids have all this stuff in their mind, right? And we gotta figure out, like, what's going on in there. Well, one of the ways you can get that out is by having them write it down or type it out, right? So they gotta see what they're thinking, be able to get an idea of their understanding, their processing, what levels they're at. And also just engage in productive dialogue, right? So we got to get what's in here out, and that's one of the ways to do that. So again, that's one of the scaffolds that's built into this program, and just good teaching in general.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Thank you.
How does this curriculum align with the new social studies standards within the state?
And I don't know
Yeah,
that
I
it,
can take that, yeah. Well, I was on
Right.
the
Yeah.
committee,
Yeah.
for better or worse, that got those finally published. I think it's well aligned. I think there's always a question in terms of, I don't know the question in terms of like, the alignment's important, but I think the bigger thing for us is like, are you taking the level of understanding, again, literally using the wheel here to the depth that's necessary. So again, you can give students, you can open the standards and have them go Google the stuff, and that's great, right? You check the box, but that's not really what we want. They got to take that and extend it. So that's really the push we're making here. The other thing I like about this, in terms of just like an engagement perspective, is when you're introducing one of these, it's not chapter 9, right? It's asking like legitimate questions, like, hey, why is this way, or was this a good decision, or what, so it's automatically right off the bat starting it, and this is similar to what we did in science a number of years ago, right? It's not just like learn the phenomena, it's like, look at that thing that happened, okay, why did that happen? So this is very similar in that approach, is that it's asking open-ended questions, and then allowing students to go in there and kind of dig out, like, okay, was that a good decision that was made back in the 1800s, or, from a civic standpoint, was that good governance that particular country did in that instance? So, it's leaving those open-ended answers out there. We're not telling them the answer, but they're going to explore it, they're going to write about it, they're going to analyze it at a very high level, and I think that's what makes this exciting.
Great.
yeah, and as long as they prove it, there isn't a right or wrong. And so it makes them think, right? And they have to dig for those answers and to justify why they think it. And that's, I think, in a small group especially, you're getting that conversation. And that's so important because you're getting other people's perspective and maybe why. So it's teaching them a lot of skills, I think. Even how to be an active listener or a good listener, because they're sometimes on islands sitting at a desk, right? So thank you.
Dr.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
have a favor to ask.
Yeah.
You can update your slide 7. You mentioned it, the math error.
Slide 7.
No, slide 7, it says 1,250 and it's 1875, which you said 1875.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
But if you can fix
1875.
that.
I will.
Because we do have people who will request our board books, and
Yeah.
so $625, not a big deal, but,
Yeah.
just so that we have that if somebody asks.
Perfect.
Correct.
I will update that in there.
So, and I have a question. So did we have a group of teachers or a committee look at different curriculums and decide on this one, or was this just chosen? Like, how did we come to?
So this isn't a curriculum. This is like supplemental pieces to their curriculum, to civics, to economics, right?
So did we have individuals that looked at this and decided this would be a good one
Yes.
before we just hand it over and they say,
Yes.
like it? Okay.
Yeah, all of the teachers that are teaching history at the secondary level have gotten together, and because it's being taught and we approved it for the 8th grade advance, they really liked that, and so they did start to investigate, and
Okay.
that's how this came to be, that they came to me to ask for it at their level. Yeah.
So if you think back to our curriculum adoption process, which is pretty lengthy, there's also an accelerated version of that for materials like this with supplement. And so that's what we're going to
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome.
If everybody is comfortable with that, we'll move that on to vote at our next meeting. If you have any specific questions, I urge you to get with Adam or get with Michelle for our next vote. Next up for discussion, Kids Corner and Little Planet preschool staff bonuses. And I'm going to turn that over to Adam.
So we were fortunate to have applied and received a child care stabilization grant through the Michigan Department of Education. This was something that Rebecca Olson and of course Sarah were extremely involved in earlier in the year. And we received it, which is awesome. The goal of the grant is to literally, as the name states, stabilize what's taking place in childcare and early childhood education right now, which has been significantly challenged over the last couple of years since the pandemic began. One of the specific items that we applied for and were granted, there was a lot of news media about this when it was rolled out several months ago, so it's hopefully nothing too surprising, but the idea that the money would be specifically targeted at bonuses or incentives for early childhood educators and child care workers. So what Rebecca's put together tonight is a breakdown in terms of how she intends to utilize the funds to compensate our child care workers and early childhood educators. I think she's done a pretty nice job of kind of outlining that and then allocating those funds appropriately as determined in the memo you have in front of you.
So additionally to this, the money does need to be spent before our next board meeting. So as much as each and every one of you know, I hate setting aside the rules, but if we don't, these individuals do not get the bonuses that they absolutely over the top well deserve.
I want to point out, though, that that's not due to anything on the district side. We received
Correct.
an acknowledgement that that the money would be, that we were going to be able to utilize it for our child care staff and early childhood educators, and they gave us the deadline in which the board needed to approve it. And the window was so tight that there's really no other option for us. And unfortunately, if we don't allocate it for this purpose, it just goes back to the state. So
So if we move this, set aside the rules to do so, we'll put it under roll call or separate action?
Because it is money, it does have to go under roll call,
Okay.
so it would be B2. So do I have a motion to set aside the rules for the Kids Corner?
I make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education, that the rules be set aside so action can be taken on Kids Corner and Little Hornets preschool staff bonuses. This will be added as roll call vote item
B2.
Could be B2.
B2.
Second.
All in, I can just do all in favor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nina, you good with the?
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry. We also have we also usually, I think Sarah has it written down so we can give it to you at the end of the meeting, what she just stated. So that's moved to B2. Okay. Are there any more questions about this money grant timeline? Everybody good? Okay. Next up, Michigan Association of School Board of Directors. This happens every year. The MASB gets this to us after our meeting in January, and then they need the vote to take place right after our first meeting in February. So we will also have to set aside the rules to pick our one candidate that then will be submitted to MASB. Does anybody, sometimes people, we know who the candidates are, sometimes we have recommendations. Anybody's thoughts, anybody have a person that they'd like to move?
In looking at the candidates, I mean, Guillermo Lopez has served on this before. He's served on the school board in Lansing for 22 years. I would recommend, he is the incumbent, and they have been doing a good job. I wouldn't have any problem with supporting him to continue.
Any other thoughts? Okay, I do need to have a motion to move MASB to our action items, and this one would go under C2. Do I have a motion for that?
I make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education, that the rules be set aside so action can be taken on Michigan Association of School Boards Board of Directors. This will be added as a separate action item to, what was it?
C2.
9C2.
C2, yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, who seconded the motion?
Chris
Okay,
Lewis.
thank you.
Dr. Lewis.
Dr. Chris Lewis. All right. We did all of that, so I think we should be set with those. Can I have a motion for our talent?
But we have agreed that,
And we'll have discussion again.
Okay.
We'll have a discussion
Yeah,
again.
we'll have a discussion when we have to go. We have to pick one, all of us have to agree on
Yeah.
it. So do I have a motion for our calendar minutes?
Make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular meeting of January 10th and the board workshop held on January 24th as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this would be a roll call vote. Can I have a motion to approve the paraprofessionals contract?
Make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the Kids Corner and Little Hornets no, that's the staff
No.
bonuses, sorry. That the Williamston Board of Education approve the paraprofessional contract as presented. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? This would be agreeing to the pairs contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is roll call.
I'm sorry, this is a roll call. Amanda?
Amanda, yes. Chris,
Yes?
Dave,
Yes.
Jeff,
yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
and Nancy.
Yes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Now may I have a motion for the Kids Corner and Little Hornets, what's the official word? Staff bonuses.
I make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the Kids Corner and Little Hornet Preschool staff bonuses.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Amanda, will you take us through roll call again, please?
Amanda, yes. Chris,
Yes?
Dave,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
and Nancy.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next, separate action items. Can I have a motion for the curriculum everyday speech?
Move that the Williamston Board of Education approve the purchase of everyday speech curriculum.
Do I have a second?
Second? Yep.
Sarah?
Doesn't matter.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, can I have a motion, so we're gonna make a motion that we will vote on an MASB person, but then we will have a discussion to choose which person we want.
Well, we already moved it to action, so,
Your move
We
action.
still have to have we still can have a discussion.
yeah, we still can have a discussion, but it can be in the affirmative, so.
Correct.
So I make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education vote for Guillermo Lopez as Region 7 board member for Michigan Association of School Boards.
Second?
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we will submit now.
Since he's the incumbent, it's.
Yeah.
Anything that-
Been there a long time.
Yep.
God bless him. We do have a correspondence that was in our packet. Is the new office manager?
Yeah, Joe's
Yeah.
the new office manager at Kids Corner and Little Hornets, and a chance to meet her today. She's going to be great.
Great.
Great, good. Got someone in there. All right, this is the second time for citizen comments. So if you would like to address the board, it doesn't have to be about agenda items, it could be anything. Step to the podium, you state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, and after 2 minutes, I will give you a 1-minute warning. Would anyone like to address the board? And before you start, I'll get my timer going. Sorry. Oh. Okay, go ahead.
Dan Rhines, 923 Williams. I know we're still in this COVID space when it comes to school, and no one is enjoying that, but as a parent, it's very frustrating to me when you make, and I say you because we're enforcing requirements from Ingham County, not regulations. We're enforcing recommendations, not requirements from Ingham County. You're telling my kids, healthy kids, tested negative for COVID like 4 times, that they have to stay home for 20 days. Then we take we take days off, COVID days, in a week, when it was obvious the week before we were most likely going to get snow days. So as a parent, it's very hard for me to figure that out with a work schedule, with everything else. I want my kids to be in school. So when my healthy kids are constantly at home and not at school, that's an issue for me. And I get it, there's all this other stuff going on. But, and maybe it's because it's a part of my job, I'm looking at that forecast and I'm going, oh, hey, a week ago Monday, they were talking about 18 inches of snow. And we're taking a COVID day on Monday, and then we end up with 2, could have been 3 days off for snow. It makes no sense for me. And again, when my healthy kids are constantly at home because we're following recommendations, and then again, my healthy kids are at home because we're taking a COVID day, I don't understand it. And maybe it's just me, maybe I'm the only one, but I felt I needed to come and say that. So.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Do you need to start the timer? I don't think I'll talk for 3 minutes. I don't have anything prepared. But I'm new to this state. We moved the day before school started from Florida. We came back to take care of family. My husband retired last month, and we brought 3 kids. My husband wrestled at Michigan State. We moved to the area for wrestling. We knew a lot of the people. My kids like their friends. They like school, but we've had a lot of issues with the mask. It affects a lot of different things, and then I hear them talking about kindergarten, first grade, and learning to read. And I have issues. I need to see mouths. I read lips, and I can only imagine for kids young trying to learn to read. I feel like my kids are harassed constantly, especially during PE. My kids are very active. We just switched classes, and my middle son, who's 7th grade, was playing sharks and minnows and sprinting, and he pulled his mask below his nose to breathe, and they were all over him. Make sure it's above your nose. My kids are very respectful. They've been sent out of class for RTC for pulling their mask below their nose to breathe. My daughter in elementary school, during PE when she runs, I tell her if you can't breathe, you pull it below your nose so you can breathe. And it is instant that they jump all over her, and she says, my mom said if I can't breathe, I need to pull it below my nose. And they say, she tells me the same thing every day. It doesn't matter what your mom says, these are the rules. My middle son is contact traced every week. He's probably been tested over 50 times. For wrestling in county, he has to go, they have to test so they can wrestle without a mask on. Whereas we all know the science is constantly changing, and I just have a lot of questions, and I don't think that it's here where I can get them answered because I feel like that's Ingham County. But the science is changing, and I just wonder what we're following because cloth masks don't do anything. You know, we were told if you got vaccinated, then you can't spread COVID, you can't get COVID. Well, that's not true either. So the kids on the wrestling team that are vaccinated don't have to test the morning of, but the kids that don't produce a card do test. Well, we've had several kids that are vaccinated and families that are vaccinated are contracting COVID. And I literally get a call every other day from Bob. I'm like, hi, Bob. Yep, it's that time again. My son is testing 3 or 4 days a week, and I'm telling you, I don't understand why we're spending so much money on testing asymptomatic kids. He's been pulled from class multiple times to be tested, and it's getting really frustrating. The wrestling coach told the kids this morning, or after school, that, you know, you got to test in the morning, you wear your mask, but when you're on the wrestling mat, you can take your mask off, but when you're on the side, you have to have it on. And I'm telling you, the demoralized kids, it's just really sad. I just have questions.
Can you say your name and address?
Oh, I didn't? I'm sorry. Melissa Harding, and it's 385 Turner. And I don't know if that's what you can answer. Who do you go through to find out who's in charge of all of that? Like, as far as who,
So I'd either reach out to your school principal or to Adam, and he can give you more details
okay.
on some of that. Would that be fair, Adam?
It's just very confusing, and
It is very, so I can't dialogue with you, but if
I-
I'm
okay.
talking to anybody.
I don't know how this all works. I just know we came from where with nothing, and it's been a change. And my husband's stuck on wanting to stay in this area. We have a lot of family, and it's really hard to see my kids. And he's not the only one. So, all right, can I email you then?
Yeah,
And-
absolutely. Yeah, we'll connect.
Okay.
Mr. Riley, I just have a question. You were saying,
Do you know,
can we ask
No.
just a
No.
clarification?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Can I talk to you
You can
after?
talk to her
Yeah, I'll
after.
ask you.
Amanda, you can talk to her after the meeting.
Okay.
We don't, yeah, this is just a time.
That's fine. It can be off record. I'll speak with you after. If that's okay.
Is there any other citizen comments?
Hello, Shannon Bush, 141 Twin Ponds. I wasn't actually coming to speak. I was just coming to observe to see how things are run, which I've done that, and I will be back with my support and information that I have. Unfortunately, I'm here because there are some extreme racial issues going on at the 3 schools. Luckily, I only have children in the middle school, so that's where I first was made aware of it. But one family has 3 children, one at each of the schools. I came here 6 years ago. Dr. T was amazing. One child said something on the school bus. He took care of it. They were suspended, nipped it in the bud. The parent even made their child write a sorry letter. But now you have a child in the middle school that has been harassing another student since September, and she's even reached out, the harasser has reached out to my child on Saturday, and her explanation is well, my brother says the N-word. And he is doing well in his business, and like it's okay. So I'm going to get my information together. I know that it's been brought to the principal's attention. The response the families are getting is that this young lady is not doing it during school time. And she's right. The little girl reached out to my daughter on the weekend. But she has actually said the N-word in person to the one child that she keeps harassing. Or well, I shouldn't say harassing, I call it, attacking, in my opinion. So I just wanted you guys to know that I will be, you'll probably see my face again, because I'm very concerned. It was perfect. I mean, the school lacks diversity. I know that, I knew that, but the education and the people, 1 minute, okay. Okay, the people here were great, have always been great, but for some reason, lately, especially starting the school year, it just seems like it's no support, and it's being allowed to be happen. And when you say allowed, I know you can't control someone, but you do know when some action has been taken, especially since a student has been doing it since September, and she's still doing it in February. Meaning either the penalties are not working for her, or to me, nothing is being happened to her. That's all I can, guess at it. But I do think this is a wonderful school, and I think you guys need to address it and nip it in the bud, because it's getting to be extreme. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Great, board member reports and requests.
I have 2 things. In regards to what we just heard, Dr. Spita, can you verify with me, we do have a policy on harassment, whether it's in school or out of school, in regards to online harassment,
Right.
correct?
Yeah, I can follow up, details.
Okay.
And myself as well, because that was, the one thing, if anybody said it wasn't through school hours, there's lots that we punish kids on that they do outside of school or whether it's done. So, and also if, you know, it'd be nice to see if anything has been on record on this, so if it's using any type of restorative justice or what has been discussed on it.
Thank you. The other thing I was just going to bring up was Dr. Spina and I did put out a new podcast and about what's happening in the district, but also Caitlin Wilcox, our social worker from the high school, joined me this time. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it is live. It's on the website, and you can listen to our voices even more. So.
And then I have also something, so regarding the mask mandate, I know that we've taken it off when we voted on mask originally, and then it was kind of Ingham County Health Department kind of made their thing, so we took it off. I kind of asked for it to be on all of our board meetings so we could review. I would like for it to be on the next board meeting. I would like to have more information on, Ingham County doesn't have anything on their website, like I'm on their website now. They don't really have any detailed, so I'd like some more information on what their requirements are so it can be a little clearer to me. So if the community asks on quarantining, if you test, if you don't test. And then secondly, I would like to maybe come back and discuss when we might want to decide to remove masks of our students. You know, when we met with Debbie Stair last week or 2 weeks ago, one of the things she said is, just because you don't have the power to do something doesn't mean you can't make a statement with a vote or something like that. I mean, I think that as some people in the audience have stated tonight, the science is kind of pretty much overwhelming that cloth masks aren't really protecting much. And I mean, I got this from Ingham County Health Department at Myers last week, so this N95, so I'm assuming they think you have to wear this or you're not protected. So, so I just think there's 4 states that lifted their mask mandates in their schools today. And I think it's time that if Ingham County is not going to step forward, at least have an honest conversation about masks in school, then at least as a school board, we can make it and put it on the record of where we feel we should be going. And maybe Ingham County will hear if more people talk about it.
So what I'm hearing from you is on our next board meeting, you'd like Adam to update us on where the Ingham County is, the Ingham County Health Department with their mask mandate.
Well, with their mask mandate and how they're doing on their testing and quarantine requirements, because they don't post it on their site.
Okay. Did you get that? Or?
I got it. I'll need some clarification on what you're looking for.
Oh.
Well, I would like to know from Linda Vale or from Ingham County, since it's not on their site, if you test positive, what are the requirements? If you are asymptomatic and you're not wearing a mask and you're not vaccinated, I want to know what.
So from our students,
the mom that was here today.
So if we had a student that tested positive, what do they need to do?
Correct.
So
I mean, I'm assuming we're following Ingham County and we don't have an overlay to testing. I'm assuming we're just following Ingham County
And
Health
some of the
Department
tests,
rules.
so there are 2, and correct me if I'm wrong, so there are 2 things, because the Ingham County Health Department, with their mask mandate and their testing and their student, what was that, like finding out who the contact was,
Mhm.
the student tracing is one thing. Sports is through the Michigan.
But does Michigan High School Athletic Association have any rules?
We gotta be careful about any of the discussion item there's board requests.
Correct, well, I'm just saying, they are 2 different things that we can,
Right,
Adam to
let me,
clarify.
yeah, let me just
to update
clarify,
us.
there's orders that were under for Ingham County. I can show you where those are.
Yeah.
And that's what we're following. We're following their orders, the way they're written.
And
Okay.
they're not- And it was stated that they were recommended, they are mandated, we're still under a mandate that we have to follow.
Right, I would just like to know where that is on their website, where we could maybe go over so people know and we can see, but I also would like to have put on a discussion item about where we are going with masks if Ingham County chooses not to. I mean, if Ingham County chooses not to make a decision, we have to make a decision as a community with the data that we all get every day from news reports, from studies, that if we want to continue, now I understand we're under a mandate, I don't know what happens if we just choose to say we don't want our kids masked tomorrow. I'm not sure if we could do that. I don't know what Ingham County Health Department could do to us. But we at least could have a conversation dialogue, and per MASB, we can put something on record of how we feel about a government, what maybe an overreach or government rule that affects us. And we can at least have it on record for our community of where we feel with that kind of direction.
So I'm gonna have, so should I have her reach out to you, Julie, reach out to you?
Mhm.
So I'll have you reach out to Adam, and then the three of us can talk or see how that fits into us.
That's fine.
All right, so I've got something, and just so you know, I had notes before I came to the meeting, so this is not a discussion item, but it pertains to the same thing. First, little history. We all kind of know what happened back in March of 2020. We know how we were supposed to wash our groceries, sterilize this, sterilize that, do everything, all the history that's been there, mask, no mask, what kind of mask work. Not, I believe one of us is technically in compliance with what the CDC is saying as their recommendation regarding K through 12. That is the only mask that is compliant under the CDC recommendation that our county health department that they're going with right now. So we are all violators.
Actually, I have one on.
Oh, you got one underneath? Okay, all right, but that's what they're recommending. February 1st, England County came out with, they update this once a week, so it'll be updated again tomorrow because that'll be the 8th. That's usually on Tuesday because they take the weekend's data and they put their stuff together. The numbers are still high, but they're plateauing. It's all there on their website. But when we go back to August, when school started, we had high schoolers and middle schoolers without masks, elementary schoolers with masks. The board made a decision with a majority of the board's vote to have the elementary kids masked because at the time they were not able to be vaccinated. Then the next meeting, which we had a lot of people here and we had some issues during that meeting, it was still a 6-1 vote to also make sure that 6th graders were masked. So no matter where we are in this situation, if we follow the way that the world is, yes, our decision was then added on to by the county. Our decision still stands. County comes tomorrow and says, no mask in the school. The way that we worded our motion and how it was, our elementary school kids would still be in masks until we either have a special meeting or until our next meeting. So we as a board should, and that's my board request, have as an action item at our next meeting where we as a board stand. Whatever the vote is, it is. So that's an official, because I think we owe that. We've been asked it, and I think that we owe it to our community to do so. Now, it still may say masks. I don't know how it's going to be, but we still have a restriction, no matter what the county does, for any kid that's under 6th grade on down to wear a mask until we as a board vote to change that. So, and I know that it was requested, and I think that that's just where we need to be. Now, that's up for Adam and Nancy, and for Nancy to put it on the agenda or not put it on the agenda, but I just believe that, it's something that's being asked. I know where I feel about this. I can sit at a basketball game at Fowlerville, no mask. I can be in Grand Rapids at a basketball game, no mask. I can be Saginaw, don't have to wear a mask. You can go to all these different venues. Ingham County is the only one around here that you have to wear a mask if you go to an athletic event. In schools, some of them have masks, but they've had outbreaks, which has been the reason that they've made their decisions. Many have not. And the data that is out there, if we go to each individual one, the statistical difference between masks and not masks, I'll let you be the judges as far as where that goes. I think that we've done what we've been told to do. I think we're going to continue doing what we're told to do. But at some point, we have to contact our representatives inside of our county. And that's any person who's come to me over the last 4 or 5 weeks and asked me about this. You have to contact your county representatives because they're the ones that made this. Was it unanimous? Or what, and I know it was bipartisan, but it was a unanimous decision by the county commissioners at that time, and they have jurisdiction over this. So that's who people have asked, that's who they need to contact. And I believe there's 13 of them.
Okay, so I'm getting 2 requests to put math discussion back on for discussion, so I will work with Adam and figure out, get information and figure out where we go with that at our next. Any other requests, reports, anything? All right, I thank all of you, and I will, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned.
Just wait a second. Don't say a word. Get all this stuff.